good friend, Lauren, who's all the way across the ocean where are you today? You're in Minneapolis today,
I
right?
am in Minneapolis.
Yeah. So we have known each other for 5 years, right?
Yes.
And it all began during the pandemic, back in 2020, when we were training to be psychedelic integration coaches together. And we ended up being paired up as partners for our training, which meant we had to kind of coach each other and practice the integration process with each other. And that's where our beautiful friendship came from. So it's been interesting because on the one hand, we started off kind of, we were both in pretty difficult times back then. So kind of helping each other in more of a like friend professional capacity. And then that has blossomed into a beautiful friendship. And we've done some TRE together. And yeah, we're just going to talk about a little bit about Lauren's story. She's got a pretty amazing story and how this work has kind of helped you, and a little bit about psychedelics as well, because that's a big part of both of our lives. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Great to be here with you. Almost here with you.
It's as close as we've ever been.
Yes.
Yes. So why don't you tell us, if we go way back when to like 2020, when we first met, what was happening in your life? What was going on for you?
Wow. Well, I had been involved in a very terrible accident, freak accident in 2017, July 1st, where we were sitting at a picnic table, my two of my family members and a bunch of my friends. So we were having lunch. And suddenly a car who was in the parking lot, not far away enough, threw her car into reverse and drove over our picnic table. And she basically drove over my body, and she and my friend was caught underneath the truck. And it was a terrible scene, and it was hideously traumatic for my husband and my son, who were first responders to this terrible thing. I was very severely injured. They did not think I was going to make it to the hospital. I had 16 broken bones. My head was ripped open and all kinds of other delights. And anyway, that was sort of the inciting incident for the rest of this journey that we're going to talk about. So, I don't have to tell you the level of trauma that was experienced by not only me and my body, but my husband and my family. And it really blew up my life for many, many years. And my kids were at the ages where they were sort of finishing up high school and entering college, and all those years got completely blown up. Everybody got completely thrown off course. I say that I felt like I was trying to push 2 boulders up a hill with 2 broken arms and 2 broken legs. So it was really a good time for me, except it was a horrible time for me. Yeah. And it was right around COVID, and somehow a copy of Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, fell into my lap. And the thing about that for me was it opened my eyes to older people working with psychedelics. When I was younger, I worked with recreationally, worked with psychedelics in high school. And I think even before that, we were big LSD friends. And we did a lot of that in high school. And I was also a fan of the Grateful Dead, which is also, as I now reflect on, a ceremony which included medicine and music. And I didn't understand the synchronicity of these two things until later. But I read his book, and he was 50, and he was saying how it was really a beautiful tool for trauma, which is what hooked me immediately, but also to explore the second part of your life. Whereas I figured, tricks were for kids and that part of my life was over, he really opened up a beautiful new chapter, and just when I needed it, especially with the trauma healing that needed to happen, which was a lot. So we have a cabin in the woods, and it was COVID, and so we found ourselves with lots of extra time and a lot of freedom, which is the upside of COVID. And my family gathered. We were together. It was very healing for us to all be together and suddenly not have to be at work or be at school or be anywhere but there with each other in the woods, on the lake, and just kind of being together. Okay, and that was a beautiful part of the healing. And then they left, and then it was me and my dog and my lake and my cabin and my woods. And I started working with psilocybin alone. And I was getting all of these beautiful teachings, and they were helping me to ground myself, to heal myself. They were helping me. They were giving me lessons about how to handle my kids, because I was just so beyond knowing what to do at that point, having so much damage to my own person, and how to help them. And I'll just relay one particular lesson. So we have an eagle's nest, and the eagles came forth, and they were teaching me, your job as a mother is to give your children roots and wings. Roots and wings. You've given them roots, and now you give them wings. And so every day, the eagles would bring their young and kick them out of the nest, and they'd fly around all day, and they'd squawk and squawk all day, and then they'd come back at night, they'd feed them, and they'd do the same thing the next day. So that was part of the lesson. And then the other lesson that happened very viscerally for me around that is I was drawn to go into the shower, and I felt like I was in labor. And instead of birthing from, the lower portion of, the womb, I was shown to rebirth them through the heart space.
Mm.
So those two lessons were really important and very convincing to me to continue to work with psychedelics for the trauma healing. And so I did a few more ventures into mushrooms and psychedelics, and I went on a retreat where I realized how the music and the medicine worked together, which was just like, wow, a huge remembrance for me from another time. And so that was really important. And all this time, you and I had been working together and talking together and mostly just bitching together.
Crying, bitching.
We were just in really rough places, but we were just each other's container, and we still are. And honestly, I think we've spoken every single day for 5 years.
I think
at least once.
Yeah, at least once. And also, we were crying, we were bitching, but we were also laughing, because even though you were in such a hard place, that trauma only happened 3 years prior. So that's not a long time. And you were really in the thick of it, especially with your kids. And you've always had a sense of humor. Like that, you've never lost that.
Oh, thank God to hear that. I don't know. Sometimes I feel pretty humorless. But yeah, so we kept each other laughing. And I don't have to tell your audience here how funny you are. And hopefully you'll release that stand-up one day for everyone to enjoy.
Maybe, maybe not.
I hope so. I mean, that was your first effort, and it was pretty damn hot. So
maybe life is my stand-up now, I don't know if I need a stage necessarily. So, okay, so we were back there, and it was very much like the beginning, right? We were learning how to work with these medicines in a professional capacity. And in order to become a coach and to hold other people, you of course have to go through your own initiation and your own work. So we kind of met each other in the beginning of all of that stuff. And, you helped me so much as well. And I didn't know I had a Lauren-shaped hole in my life until I met you. And it was just like, of course this person's here, you're one of those people that it's like, oh, we've known each other forever. It was just instant. And even though we have never met, which is very strange, we have,
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the tools that you have used to try and heal from this trauma. Like what has worked and what hasn't really worked for you?
Well, I think everything I've done has contributed to my healing, including my friendships. And my trainings. I think our integration training was integral as well, because it was such a journey and an experience through our own darkness and shadow and with each other. And it was a long training, and it was very intensive. And I think for me, having jumped back on a psychedelic path, I needed to learn how to integrate, because I kept hearing about integration. You have to integrate your lessons. You have to integrate. And I had no fucking idea what that even meant. So of course, what do? I do a year-long training because I want to really know what it means, right? Because I don't want to do it wrong, because there are a lot of things that can go wrong in the space, as we know.
As we
And I
know.
don't want to be a victim to one of. I want it to work, right? So so you learn what integration is. Okay, so 20% of your experience is the actual physical medical medicine journey, and then the next 80% is what you would just toss under the integration umbrella, which includes preparation, like
Yeah.
in large part. And then afterwards, right? The aftercare, the integration, which for me included all kinds of things, because this is kind of what I do anyway, right? I'm like, got my hands into, I'm working with whales and dolphins. I'm working with chelonic science, 12-stranded DNA work. I do, meditation, sound healing, nature bathing, all of it. And I was doing therapy for a long time with this guy who is a shaman who happens to take insurance, which is the perfect combination. So anyway, after a couple of the psychedelic mushroom journeys, I got the cojones to take on ayahuasca. It had been calling me for a long time, but I was, of course, terrified of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I found the right container, came to me, came through somebody else, and it was just, I always knew it was a perfect fit. I never questioned, any of these journeys, if they would work for me or not. I just kind of trusted my intuition on these things. And it was brilliant. And here's the part that I want to share about TRE and psychedelics. So you and I had done a few TRE sessions, and I'm just going to back up the clock just for a minute to my first exposure to TRE. So right after my accident, I was in the hospital for 3 months. So I finally got home. And so it was in that first month that I was home. And I had a friend and a comrade. Her name was Catherine Taylor. And Catherine Taylor is basically the mother of inner child work. She wrote the first workbook and book about it. And she was and is and continues to work with me, even from the beyond the veil, for sure. But she came to visit me, and she said to me, I know this is not going to sound right now, but I just want you to know that here's my thought. I can't wait to see what you do with this. And of course, I said, I want to punch you in the throat right now because I'm so fucked up. Like, I've never been so fucking broken, physically and every other way. And she said, I understand, but I just want you to know that this is going to serve you at some point.
Was this during when you were in the hospital? Was this after? When did you?
I was in the hospital for 3 months, and I had just gotten home. So I'm sure it was within the first month of me being home that she came over. And not long after that, and she stood by me. I mean, she checked in with me all the time. I was in such a dark place. I mean, it was very, very long that I was in this place. But she kept on, and then she called me one day and she said, I'm in this training. And she kind of walked us through a thing, and I'm thinking, this is so dumb. I don't get it. What are we doing? What's happening? Nothing's happening. I'm done. I'm just tired of trying to heal, right? So nothing really happened. But anyway, so back to TRE. So a couple times, one time before a psilocybin retreat, we did it as well. Correct? So we started to use it as preparation for retreats, medicine retreats.
Yeah.
And I'm not remembering if there was an experience directly with the TRE with the psilocybin, although I know that it did make things easier and more smooth. Mm-hmm. But with the ayahuasca, it was so visceral and directed that this is what I'm going to tell you about. So in Topanga Canyon with this group, we're at Neil Young's old place called The Retreat. All this music has been recorded there. The place has really awesome energy and a little bit of weird energy too. And so the first night goes the way it goes, and it's pretty amazing. And the second night, The second night is getting off the ground and starting to roll. And I hear this voice, and it says, Elder, let's continue to shake and let's finish the job. Let's shake out all the rest of the trauma from that accident from your body. Every last drop. And I'm like, okay. So Lenna and I had done TRE in preparation for this journey, this retreat. And so Ayahuasca, Gaia, whoever's coming through, this beautiful lady is like, okay, we're going to continue Lenna's work right now. So just lift your hips up a little bit and let's just let the rest of it release. And that was it. I mean, she gave me the directive. I lifted my legs. I was shaking. I was shaking all the way through my legs, through my torso, because all my ribs were broken. My arm was broken, everything, just everything, my head. Everything was tremoring in a very comfortable way. I mean, it was just so calming. And she kept calling me elder, like she was holding me so gently, right? And the tremoring was so gentle. And I don't know how long it went on. It could have been 10 minutes. It could have been 2 hours. I really don't know. But at one point she said, if you're tired, rest. And I was. So it could have been a couple hours. I really don't know. And I rested. And when I got home, I fired my therapist because I didn't need him anymore. Now, this is an amazing thing. And even he was like, you sure? I'm like, and I'd been working with him for 2 years. So it's not like he never helped me with anything. He certainly helped me a ton. Maybe it was even 3 years. But I knew that reactivity that I had, all the dysregulation that I had, the darkness that I had, just the difficulty getting through a day with all of those factors at my heels was gone. It was gone. And I got home and I called Lenna. I'm like, you're not going to believe what happened. But it's a tool that prepared me and my higher helpers it's a language that I speak, that you speak, that she speaks. And she spoke the same language to me. And through that exercise, I was able to release all the rest of the trauma out of my body. And it's pretty amazing. And so easy, gentle.
When was that? Because that was a while ago now. When was that retreat?
Gosh, I don't know, a year?
It's about a year, because it's not like it was yesterday and you're still in that high, you're still in that, expanded state. It's been a while. Like this is integrated. So you're not speaking from that place of this just happened, I'm still in the high. You're speaking from a place of real integration where you've seen these shifts and you've seen these changes. Just to reflect a little bit on what you shared. So the first thing that's so interesting to me is that the right tool has to find you at the right time, because TRE found you when you're in the midst and the depth of that trauma, but it wasn't the right time. There wasn't a resonance there because your body was still in the trauma. It didn't click for whatever reason. It didn't click. You were overwhelmed with different modalities, different therapies. Sometimes we're just full and we just can't take anything else in. And I remember something similar happened to me when my therapist tried EFT with me about 10 years ago. She just started like tapping on me in a session and I was like, what is this? And she was like, this is going to heal you. And I was like, what is it? No. And it just did nothing for me. And now I'm an advanced EFT practitioner. So like 5 years later, I was like, oh, and it landed. And it feels like that's what happened for you. Like it came back at a point where there was more regulation in your system and you were ready to start peeling back the layers of that trauma. So that's the first thing that I think is amazing. It's like same tool, different circumstances. And then it was like, because I remember the first session we did was really powerful for you. Not in terms of like big and cathartic and giant movement, but it was powerful. It was subtle and it was powerful. And with your therapist, you said I got backfired my therapist, but the thing is, I always speak about preparation, right? How preparation is the most important part of the journey. I think you can throw integration out the window if you do the preparation. If you're going to choose the prep. And you'd already done 2 or 3 years of therapy. That was your preparation, You'd prepared for this. You've been preparing your whole life. You're a spiritual seeker. You're a healer. You've been preparing your whole life to work with psychedelics. So you weren't a novice who just jumped in the deep end. You were somebody who'd done your homework. You did a whole year's training program, to be an integration therapist. So, you'd done the work, you put in the groundwork. And then what I often see is, because of that, you do get these big healings in the medicine space because you've laid the groundwork. And especially with ayahuasca, I think ayahuasca respects that and will meet you where you are. And it's a threshold, and then say, okay, you can cross the threshold because you've paid your respects, you've done the work, you've worked with your nervous system as well. So from a physiological point of view, your nervous system, it was a lot more regulated. And again, the ayahuasca was the right tool at the right time.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
But I can't stress enough how beautiful the TRE and the medicine are partnered.
Yeah. It's like obvious. It's like when you add it in. I remember the first time I added it in with mushrooms, and I had this spontaneous healing of hip pain that was so bad I could almost not walk up the stairs anymore, and it was gone the next day. My body was just showing me this kind of blueprint of the human body and going, this is the key to the engine. It was almost like you can't start the car without this. Like, you need the tremor. And like you said, I call it a language, you called it a language. It's a language. It's like a third thing has entered the chat. It's like the medicine, you, and then this thing. And it's the body, it's the nervous system, it's this primal reflex that's coming from the most ancient part of the brain. We've always done this. Every mammal has always done this. So it's nothing new. But I wonder if humans were tremoring with psychedelics, thousands of years ago. Maybe.
Well, if humans were tremoring after being chased by a lion, they wouldn't need psychedelics.
Wow.
I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Because we don't anymore. And that's why, psychedelics could be used for other things to expand your consciousness and other things. But if we were tremoring like an animal tremors, right, according to Peter Levine and these somatic gurus, teachers, experts out there, we wouldn't be holding it, and our systems would not be dysregulated to begin with. So, but we don't do that. And I don't know why. I think I've read that it's because we don't want to appear weak or vulnerable, or we want to get the hell out of there. Because after an animal gets chased, it'll find a safe space and lay down and just tremor for a while, and then pop up and they're good. They're not holding. But I don't know why humans don't do that. Do you?
Well, the theory is that it made us look weak and it made us look like prey. So somewhere along the way, we obviously developed this huge cognitive function to be able to think and reflect. And I think with that, we lost some of our animal instincts. But what we see is children will still shake. When we're pushed far enough, we will shake. So women, after they give birth, will often shake uncontrollably. And actually, doctors will sometimes inject you to stop that from happening, which is criminal, because that's just the body discharging the trauma, right? It's natural. It's supposed to happen. But we've started to see tremoring as pathological. And yes, there are some pathological tremors, but the tremoring itself is not bad. It's a wonderful thing, but we're scared of what we don't understand. And so
I was going to say we don't understand.
we don't understand it. But the other thing I wanted to ask you is, because I know this happened for me and I know it's happened for my clients, where the reason I started combining TRE and psychedelics was because I noticed a tremor in the client in the first hour or two of the journey. I was like, there's a tremor, something's trying to happen. And that's before I had any of the language for this. Started to explore and practice on myself and realized, holy shit, like this is something big. And I know with my own journey, until I had the context of understanding what TRE was and having been through sessions and doing my training, the tremoring deepened so much once my brain understood what was going on. So before, clients, I was noticing they would suppress the tremor because they didn't know what it was. They didn't understand that it was a good thing. They just think this might be something weird. Even subconsciously, they would suppress it. But once you've been primed with TRE, like we did with you in the preparation phase, because your brain knows what it is, because your subconscious knows what it is, because your body knows what it is, it welcomes it in. So do you think that you might have had do you think you would have had the same experience without having those TRE sessions beforehand?
No, because everything you said. People look at tremoring as a weakness, as something's wrong. Like if so I'm thinking about my kids, right? So if my kid is tremoring in the bed, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong? Is something bad going to happen? Is he going to suddenly have a heart attack? Is he going to have a stroke? Is he freezing cold? Is he dying of fever? Something's wrong? Something's wrong. Like something's wrong. Something's wrong. He's tremoring.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole thing in us humans needs a reframe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you come in with this technique and says, tremoring is good. This is what's happening. We're releasing, we're ayahuasca telling me, okay, we're just going to release every last drop of any trauma that you're holding from getting run over by a fucking Ford Explorer. I mean, that's it, right? We're just going to shake it off.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to pop up like a gazelle and go about your business, go find your people. And so I think when you were talking about the whole cognitive thing, as soon as that came in, we lost touch with the body.
Yeah.
We lost touch. So we need to be re-educated here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not panicking here and here,
Yeah.
Because
and then we can create a bridge, right? We can bridge because the mind is always kind of demonized a little bit in spiritual spaces and psychedelic spaces, but actually the mind needs to be included just as much as the body does, just as much as the soul does, just as much as the subconscious does. It's everything. We are everything.
Right.
So I think that once the mind understands more and has more context and feels safer, because we have to be kind to our mind as well, it's trying to protect us. Then, in my experience, people do have these really huge releases with psychedelics and tremoring, and it's an absolute game changer, in my opinion.
Me too.
Yeah, and you're living proof. And what we're talking about with you, this is capital T trauma. This isn't like complex trauma either, which is, I think, what we're usually talking about is complex trauma. You were like full on PTSD. It was big.
Yeah. And I don't know about little T, like people who have gone through, really difficult childhoods where that's the day after day, the week after week, the year after year stuff is a very different experience,
Yeah.
But I can only imagine that you could shake that off too. If I could shake a Ford Explorer driving over me, then I would hope that people could shake, more like my friend who not recently died of cancer. She was, we were talking towards the end of her life and she was saying, you got run over by a car. I'm dying from 1,000 paper cuts.
Death by 1,000 cuts is what we call complex trauma.
Yeah.
And, TRE is an incredible tool for complexity as well. It's more like there are more layers. So it's actually more complicated, not to diminish your experience in any way because it was horrific. But healing one big thing like that, sometimes it's easier than the millions of tiny little things because you have to go to each of them and there's still the same dysregulation and less of the physical stuff, but it will manifest physically eventually as chronic illness or chronic pain or something like that. So it's not that one's more difficult than the other. TRE is a wonderful tool for both. It's just in my experience, complexity, it takes a little bit longer. We have to go gentle. It's less likely to be one thing, one experience.
Right. And I will say, I mean, that healing journey from the run over to that, it was 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
So again, it was layers and layers and layers. And by the time I was ready to shake off the rest of it, I had already shaken off a decent amount of it.
Yeah.
And also not necessarily in a medicine space, just you and I on Zoom.
Yeah.
Doing the sessions. And they were so easy. And I can attest to that because my son, who was unwilling to do anything to help himself for many years, which was really difficult for me to watch and witness. But finally he agreed and he came downstairs with me that one day and I was so grateful. And you were so cute. I mean, he loved you because, your accent is adorable and you're funny. And it's really, here's your gift. You can take this giant body of knowledge that it took you 1.5 years, and I was there every day with you on your training, and I knew how difficult it was, and I knew the challenges that you went through with the training and, with yourself and with your own body and your own process. So you've integrated all that, and then you just hold space and it seems so easy. It's kind of like those actors who have hundreds and thousands of pages of dialogue and they just make it look so easy, like they just made it up. And that's how you appear and you show up. And he's such a good barometer because he's 24 and totally like, this is all dumb and nothing's going to help me. He had the greatest time. He just thought it was easy and funny. I remember when he started to tremor, he started laughing. Yeah. And he's like, this is funny. This is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And he was really nervous because he was going off to California. He has a fear of flying now because of all the trauma, and he, hasn't had a lot of obstacles. He's come through a lot. And he was about to take a train across the country because he wouldn't fly, and he was very nervous and having a lot of anxiety that day. And that's why I was like, "Get down here! I don't want to hold your anxiety anymore. Just come sit with us." And we pulled up our mats and we pulled up our pillows, and there you were, and you're like adorable and funny and easy about it. And he just had the greatest time. And do you remember what he said at the end?
No, remind me.
He was just like, "Yeah, that was great. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun."
Yeah.
I mean, if you have any idea what it took to get him to that point, to just go, "That was fun." I mean, it was years of like, ah.
Yeah, because when your mum is asking you to do healing work, it's the last thing you're going to want to do as a 20-something-year-old kid. Like, shut up, mom, I'm not going to do that.
That was so awesome. I mean,
Yeah. And you did it together, and it was so cute because you also had similar tremoring patterns. I remember watching your bodies and being like, oh, look at this.
oh yeah, I don't know.
It's very sweet. And yeah, to be able to do it together, I think is so sweet. And also, yeah, that he was open to it and he just gave it a go. And it's so accessible because it's complex. What happens in TRE is so complex, but it's such a simple practice. And you can explain it in a million different ways. And I think with him, I used the car metaphor, didn't I? Like, it's like changing gears and it's like you're trying to find the biting point. And he was like, oh, I get it. And it's like, you just need to find the access point for people where you can meet them exactly where they are. And the practice is the same. It doesn't matter how you explain it. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah. So it was really good.
Oh. So tell me what's changed since you came home, you fired your therapist, and how has this kind of shown up in your life?
I think I was just really, you could probably speak to this better than me because you were on the receiving end of all my stuff all the time. And how you go through it and you don't remember all the details because you try and forget as fast as you can because it was so uncomfortable. I just felt so stuck between life and death. I felt like if there is such a thing as a soul loss, which I believe there was, I think my soul just went exit stage left and my body continued to live. And I've since started to learn about what actually transpired during that, soul contracts, missions and purposes and things like that, which I'm not going to get into all that kind of crazy stuff. But so doing this work over it's almost 8 years now that this has happened. I've just come into a much deeper understanding of what I'm here to do or who I am or why I'm still alive.
Yeah.
And I think before that, I was just in such a dark place because I was trying so hard to figure out why I was still here and what was the point of it all. Like, how did I even survive that unsurvivable thing and why? Like, I felt like pressure. Like, it's like, okay, well, I died and then I undied and now I have no idea why. And I don't even know why I'm here. And I wish I wasn't most of the time because it was just such a dark. I just was in the dark, Inanna in the underworld for many, many years, trying to re-piece myself together.
Yeah.
Remember. So I'm remembering and I'm remembering and I'm remembering and I'm remembering it. And the more I remember, the more I understand what I'm here to do. And the callings are clear and I'm not questioning everything and I'm not I'm just back on track in a way with my soul. And I have Catherine in a way to thank for that question because it is true. This I would not be here right now in this place where I am, which I feel really grounded and pretty damn good, which I did not think was going to be possible during those early years that you and I were hanging out. I didn't think I was ever going to feel okay again or together again. But I think a lot of it had to do with there was so much of my soul that was gone, that was not willing to come back into this body because it was just like, it's not safe here.
Yeah.
You could be sitting at a table eating a sandwich and you could get run over by a fucking truck. So why would you want to come here? not a safe place, and it's not a safe body, to be in. So my soul was like, no, hell no,
Yeah.
hell no. So it
Yeah.
took all those things, and I think that by releasing the trauma, it creates space for my soul to come back in. When my
Mm.
body is so with trauma, there's no room for my soul. My soul there's no space for it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think, the alchemy that's part of this whole thing is
Yeah.
when you can release, you make space.
Make space. Yeah. And I think that's where the psychedelics have been so important for you, because there was so much fragmentation after your accident, physical, spiritual, the whole thing, right? And it's very hard to heal that level of things through a medical lens, right? You were put back together by amazing doctors and all of that stuff, but then you're left with this soul fragmentation and this all of this stuff. Your psyche was fragmented and you were in a really dark place. And I think what I've noticed is more ease and less pressure on yourself. There was always this pressure of like, well, now that I've survived this thing, surely I have to do something. Surely I have to do something. And it was like all this pressure all the time, and you were still healing. And I don't know anything that can help with that kind of soul fracture like a psychedelic, because it works at a completely different, different level than anything else. So, I mean, if you're just left with the medical system and nothing else, I don't think you would be able to get to this point.
No way. Because what they would have done is put me on, some kind of a psychiatric medication. And for me, I've been on them before. After the birth of my second kid, I had postpartum depression.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying they're bad. They are not. They're situationally, if they can keep you from killing yourself and your children, which is basically what we're talking about, nobody wants to say the words.
Yeah.
But after you have a baby, your hormones are fucked. You've just carried a child for 9 months. Your body's exhausted. You've just given birth. The baby's up all the time. You're making milk. You're so depleted, so exhausted. That's a form of torture in and
Yeah.
of itself, right? And if you have another kid that's running around it's nobody warns you how depleting. And if you're that depleted and there's so many demands on you all the time, all day long, every day, every night, you're going to get suicidal. That's what it means to have postpartum depression. We are talking about suicidality and murder. Literally. Come arrest me. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to drop a truth bomb here. There was a woman who had recently driven her kids into the lake. They were in the back seat, and she drove herself and her kids into the lake. And I was thinking at that time that was a pretty good fucking idea,
Mhm.
because I had nothing left to give, and I couldn't think straight. So I couldn't think like, you need to get a nanny, or you need to get babysitter, or you need to get somebody in here so you can take a nap, because you're so sleep deprived. It's like torture. Your mind is not good. And
Mhm.
that's what happens. I think it's more sleep deprivation than anything else.
Mhm.
And when you get that deprived of sleep, those are the thoughts you had, because there's no other way out of it.
Yeah.
There's just no way out of it.
Mhm.
Um, and so in those situations, get on some fucking meds, people. Seriously.
Yeah.
Because and get some help and all that stuff. Get support, get some sleep, get some self-care in there, because you can't maintain that, right?
I mean, if you can, right? Because there is no village anymore. So you don't always have the option for sleep and self-care and a nanny. Sometimes the meds are the thing that's going to save your life,
Well,
because you
they
can't
may.
change the situation.
Yes, and I did, and it's funny that you say that, because now looking back, I see all the things I should have done to support myself. But in my mind, I was like, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, right? I'm really lucky, right? Like, my husband's making all the money, right? So I don't have to work. So this is my job. Oh my God, it's too big of a job for one person to do.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that back then, and I sort of felt it as a failure to admit any of that. But meanwhile, I'm thinking about driving my kids into the lake. This is the truth.
Yeah.
So I got on the meds, and it stabilized me, so I could start to, you know, maybe ask for some help. I can't remember how it all went down after that, but it did definitely pull me out of that hole
Mhm.
because, you know, you don't want to do that, but you're not thinking straight.
Mhm.
Um, so my point is there is a reason and a purpose. And I think these medications can be useful in situations.
Yeah.
Situational.
And that's, we're talking about trauma here. That's the theme of this conversation. And childbirth is a trauma. Medicalized childbirth can be a trauma. Not having enough support is a trauma. Like everything we're talking about this is the complexity of trauma, right? It's compounding one thing on the other, on the other, on the other. And mothers are also not given the support they need. Society doesn't look at mothers with that kind of compassion. It's like, well, she drove her kids into a lake. She's a bad person. That's what society would say, right? But if you haven't been on the edge, and I've been on the fucking edge, so I know that when you're on the edge, you just want it to stop because your system is so traumatized. It's so overwhelmed. It's too much. It's a survival instinct, right? It's like, well, I can't survive this, so I need a way out. And that's not logic. That isn't logic. That's your nervous system and your body saying this has to stop.
Yeah, and there are other factors too. So when you're in that space, you're not breathing, you're not drinking, you're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're not getting sunshine, you're not exercising. I mean, you're going down hard. So you
Yeah.
need something to re-regulate, right? So you can say, "Oh, wow, okay." And so when I started on those meds, I was having a breakdown. Obviously, if I was having those thoughts, I called my therapist and she said, "Get on a plane and get to your mom's," because I don't know why my mom didn't just come there. I don't know. I can't remember. It was just a crazy time. And so I did it and I got on Prozac but I had my mom to help me watch the kids,
Mm.
and I healed. I was there for like 2 or 3 weeks and I was just, letting the meds do their work, getting a helping hand with the kids. Um, she was, feeding me and letting me nap and all those things. So it was like a combination of the things, but yeah, I mean, yeah. So anyway, but in that situation, if I would have just stuck with the medical, I would have just been on meds probably for the rest of my life because it was a long process.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, we're coming up on 8 years, and I think I've been feeling good for maybe the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely been a shift in the last couple of years for sure.
Yeah.
It felt like you were kind of just in a circle, in a cycle before that. And it was, we always call psychedelics pattern disruptors, right? And also when you were, in that really difficult time of motherhood, the Prozac was a pattern disruptor. It was something just to disrupt, just to give you that perspective shift. And it sounds like that's what the ayahuasca journey did. It was, and I know for a long time you were terrified of it. You were like, I could never do that. You were so scared of it. And then one day it was like, I'm ready. And you trusted that. And you did the prep and you went in prepared and equipped. And you did get the healing that you deserved and that you'd worked so hard for. But that's only because you'd put in all the groundwork. If you'd gone to that same ayahuasca journey a year after your accident, I can almost guarantee you would have been re-traumatized.
Oh my gosh, I can't even. There's no way because, and I will speak to this too. It took me years. Well, 2017 to COVID was 2020. So that's 3 years of just being in the underworld.
Yeah.
I was just in the underworld. And the thought of getting on a plane and going to Mexico, where I did my a couple of psilocybin journey or retreats.
Yeah.
No way. I mean, I could barely leave the house, kind of.
Mm.
I mean, I wasn't like stuck in my house, but I was so limited with my body healing
Mm-hmm.
and just my nervous system was so jacked. And I mean, I could barely. I just remember being in the hospital and having panic attacks about thinking about going home and walking up my stairs.
Yeah.
Like, how am I ever going to be able to walk up my stairs? I can't even explain what that is, but it was terror.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Like, was it because I thought I was going to fall back down? Was it
Mm.
because I thought I could never be the same person with my body that's broken?
Mm-hmm.
That I can't just be the person that walks up the stairs to my room? And I didn't for a long time. I lived on the main floor
Yeah.
for at least a year. in a hospital bed. I did not go upstairs. I could not go upstairs. I could not walk up the stairs. So I had such fear that it took years for me to get to the place where, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to the airport.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get on a plane. Because before that, I did any of that, I was doing ketamine stuff in
Yeah, I
town,
remember.
in town. And I was terrified because the ketamine room that they used had us out right outside was a sidewalk, and then there was a street. And I was afraid that a car was going to drive through and hit me while I was under.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a long time until I could get on a plane and do something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
that in itself was like this huge thing, that I was able to do. So baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps.
How do you feel about all of that? Do you feel proud of yourself?
Yes, I do. I do. For a long time, I was mad that I was still alive.
I know.
Really long
Which
time.
was also really funny, it made for great comedy.
I mean, it's true. It's like, really? Like, who lives through that? Why? But now I see the gifts. I see the gifts in it. And my spiritual practice and my spiritual understanding of things has gotten so much deeper because of that. And just recently, I did a journey with this man called Dr. Sam Lee, and he does something called the Heart Protocol. He calls himself the spiritual psychiatrist. I really like this man. And he has you. It's kind of like this proprietary blend of medicines, which I think includes MDMA and ketamine and some other proprietary things. But he has you record your journey onto your phone. And I didn't know if I talked or not, but I said, what the hell? And after the journey, I had a 3-hour recording, which I transcribed over a period of days. And in the journey, I was healing people. Okay. And I have a fuzzy remembrance of what was said, but not really. Apparently it's your higher self channeling through. So he opens up the heart and you're able to channel your higher self, your inner knowing. And I was healing, which I often do in retreats. I name people and you are healed, things like that. And I was going through the list and it was, Lenna and, all my friends and my family, all the, the usual suspects. And then the name of the person who ran me over came out of my mouth. And I did not know, I was not aware of that until I was doing the transcription. And I stopped the tape and started to hysterically cry. And my sister-in-law was watching me because I was staying at their house. And she goes, what happened? I'm like, where do I begin to explain what just happened?
Yeah.
But I'm at a place now where I forgave her for running me over, even though she never apologized. She never, nothing. She died, whatever. I don't know. But she was in the healing list of beloved people in my life who I released.
Wow.
And forgave.
Do you know what? You hadn't told me that. And it's really fascinating because I remember not even that long ago, you were so angry with her. Rightfully
so. At least you could call. I'm sorry. You
drop a note through the door, something.
Anything,
Yeah.
But and I looked her up a couple years ago and I found out that she was dead. And I almost typed a message on her, they had something for her from her funeral. And I had a time and like, you really, you did this and you're awful and you screwed my life up, my kids and all this stuff. And then I noticed that she had a husband and 4 kids. I just thought, okay, I can't leave this for them to have to hold. I've had to hold your mistake with my kids. I'm not going to make you hold mine with yours. I'm not going to make your kids hold your mistake.
Yeah.
So I erased it. Almost.
Very mature of you.
Almost.
I can see how it would have been tempting. But what's interesting about this? I think forgiveness is a massive topic that we don't really, we won't go into the full thing. But I see a lot of people, especially in psychedelic space, trying to force forgiveness or trying to force people to forgive, trying to force their clients to forgive, because it's like that old thing. Well, it's like holding poison, drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's like, yeah, we get it. We get it. Like, okay, fine. That makes sense. But you can't force it. You cannot force forgiveness. And for you, it's almost like it just happened organically from all the other work that you'd done, all the releasing that you'd done. And then it just came around when you were least expecting it. And I feel like that's kind of how it works. It's a bit sneaky, the old forgiveness. When it's real, when it's when it's aligned, when it's really true, when you're not just saying a positive affirmation, I forgive you. It's bullshit. Like it has to come from truth.
Yeah, it's true. And I still feel like forgiveness is like this. As I learned this in pranic healing, my early pranic healing days of training. Forgiveness is like this. If you don't forgive, this is you, and this is the person you don't likey. And they're still attached to you if you don't forgive them. But if you can find a way to release yourself from them, then you are free. So you're not even really doing it for them.
We know that in theory, but it's not easy. Like you can say that to somebody, but you don't hear that and then go, great, I've forgiven someone. It's like telling someone a theory, but it's like, okay, cool. But you still need to go through all the stages of resentment, rage, wanting to write a horrible message on their fucking funeral thing. Like all of that, I believe, was part of your forgiveness. All of that rage, all of that hatred, all of that needed to be metabolized and felt before you could get to that place.
Absolutely. And so I will say that I feel free, but I still wish she would have called me and apologized. I mean, wouldn't that be the human thing to do? But I'm not going to hold that feeling because then I'm not free.
Yeah.
And I want to be free of her.
Yeah.
She's dead. I want to be free of her. I want to be free of, all that extraneous holding on. And maybe TRE allowed me to shake her off too. Who knows?
Who knows?
But, I don't want to carry it. I don't want to carry it anymore. I carried it so far and it makes it harder to heal.
Again, it was the right medicine at the right time. Everything feels like, as you're speaking, it's like these layers have come off with these different medicines at these different points. And, you've been doing so many things to try and help yourself and try and heal yourself. Not only you, but everybody in your family as well. You've taken that upon yourself as well. So you've been carrying a hell of a lot. And I don't think I've seen you this easeful in your life and with yourself and this accepting of where you are.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, I will say just the little bit that I've shared with my family. My kids have done their own psychedelic work and come back to me with some pretty amazing things. So that's proof that they're not just completely blowing me off and ignoring. But I'm a firm believer in like frequency. So, and it's always been a thing. So this room that we're in was a very difficult room when we moved into it. My husband and I were not doing very well. He was kind of hanging out down here. We weren't sure what was going to happen. And then we healed that, and this became a healing room. And then I would have people in here and meditate in here. And so the room is very high vibrational. So then it spreads out to the rest of the house, which spreads out to the rest of the family, which spreads out to the rest of the neighborhood, and on and on, right? So, I mean, I feel like I think the mom in a family can be the pace car. And I think that's kind of my part of my role is I don't have to tell somebody to do something specific. I don't have to wait to be happy until they do a certain thing. I just have to keep on listening to my own instructions because everything that I've done, even though it might have felt frenetic, it's like, oh, because I was afraid, but I had to push through the fear because I knew it was the next thing I had to do. Mm-hmm. And every single thing that I've done that you've helped me to do was obviously the next thing, and I would weave in all this fear and resistance and trepidation, but I knew I had to do it, but I wanted to bitch about it, but I was scared, but I did it. And as I did all these things, my family came up in frequency as well. And sometimes I wonder if I was the one that was going, you have to do this, you have to do that. My frequency was low then because I was grasping and I was fearful and I was afraid for them. And so that was my pace car low. So when I started to just focus on myself and my own healing, then my frequency could rise, and then everybody could just kind of rise with me and just in their own way, whatever that looked like.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go on the retreat with me and do it this certain way, but they went into the woods and they were with their friends and they had these beautiful experiences. And one of my sons saw his life as a canvas and a blank canvas. She told me, you're an artist and your life is a blank canvas and you get to create your life like you would create a piece of art, these beautiful messages. And that was because I had the bravery to do it first.
Yeah, you sure did.
And give permission to, it's not every day that the mom is encouraging their children to go do drugs. Please.
Let's also just say that this was not an easy journey for you. With every up level, with every rung of that ladder that you've climbed, there has been huge resistance. It hasn't always been like crystal clear that this is what you need to do. It's been like, part of me wants to do this, but part of me is really scared and absolutely does not want to do this. So bravery, courage is a big part of it as well, of knowing where.
Huge part of it.
Yeah, knowing where fear is really there to protect you, or when fear is there as part of an old program that's running in the background.
Yeah. What I notice is it's my inner self, my spiritual self will show me what I need to do next. And when I'm aligned with that part of myself, it's absolutely right. And I'll sign up for it and do all the things and get it ready. Then my ego kicks in and says, what are you doing? You don't know what you're doing. This is crazy, blah, blah, blah. And then that's where the resistance comes in. It's where the two parts of myself are sort of arguing it out. But
that's where I get the text.
Yeah. What am I doing? I can't go.
I don't want to go.
I'm going to cancel.
Should I cancel? I don't know if I have to cancel. I can get a refund on the flight. Should I cancel? But every time you go through the same thing. And I think that is part of the journey. It's part of it. I have a mentor. She always says you have your human self, your animal self, and your angel self, or your higher self, or whatever. And it's like, you have to take care of all three of them. And that human self might come online sometimes, be like, I'm really scared. And it's not dismissing that and saying, well, you're wrong. I need to get rid of you so I can ascend. It's like, yeah, let's take care of that part as well, because she's scared for a reason. She's been through a hell of a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's why I went to Topanga Canyon and not to Peru.
Yeah.
Traipsing through the jungle, I'll always pick something a little more luxurious where I know that a lot of my human needs are going to be taken care of.
So with less humidity.
Yeah. Good food, good people, nice space, good bed, if you can take care of your human, then your higher self can have a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
let me ask you a question before we finish up, because we started this when you were talking about where you were 5 years ago, and you were, a woman in midlife, and you were thinking about stepping back into psychedelics after all this time. So what would you say to somebody who is where you were then, who's maybe in midlife and feels like, oh, I wonder if I could explore this, but I'm scared, but part of my human is scared? Like, what would be your advice to that person?
I would definitely encourage it with a caveat. The caveat is this: find a guide who has done the work that Lenna has done, who has done the work that I have done, who has done the work. Vet your people, get a guide who will vet your people very carefully, because there's just a lot going on in the psychedelic space. And you want a guide who can make sure that yes, it's awesome to trust your intuition and all that stuff, but I had a lot of guidance around that. So if you do not, find someone who does, because it'll make your exploration just so much better. I mean, I just went into it in the woods myself with the mushrooms and had some good experiences and had some really hard experiences as well. And you may have both, and you probably will. But if you can at least look at all the factors in the picture and make sure that the big ones are taken care of, that your leaders are full of integrity, and that your medicine is clean, and that you're, all the things that you won't even think of. So get a good guide and go for it, because I don't know, to me, it's hard for me to say, because it's the only way that I would have handled this. I mean, it all came together, the Western medicine too, but at a certain point, if you realize that this is about soul growth and about health and about wellness and about purpose and about, depth, then yeah, I don't know any other way unless, you want to meditate for 20 years, which you should do anyways. But there's nothing like direct revelation. It is powerful, it is palpable, it is unforgettable. You will not have to write it down. You will want to write it down, but you don't need to, because I remember everything, not everything, but a lot of things so sharply. It's more real than real. I believe that. And it's a path that's not for everybody, but if it's calling you, then I would listen.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really good advice. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for doing this and for speaking to me and sharing your story and being so open about everything, because I don't think people, they like to share the good stuff, but they don't always share the difficult stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you for being such a wonderful friend and mentor and just all around great human.
Thank you. Back at you.